Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Backwoods Brothers. We're so glad that you're joining us tonight. We're a show where anything can happen. My name is Tony, and this is...
I'm Joel, and welcome to Backwoods Brothers. It's great to have you here. We're really excited, and we are live. And man, I'll tell you, the preparation and everything has been crazy. So, Tony, why don't you go and tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Sure. You know what? I have a family of one wife, of course. I love her so much. Her name is Amy. And I have a 10-year-old miracle daughter. And the reason why I say miracle daughter, because we were told that we weren't allowed to have children. We couldn't have children, not allowed, but we couldn't have children because of things. So we decided that we're going to just give up some hope. And it was a forced decision on us because after we spent time trying to have one, we had to finally give that piece over to my personal belief is, as a Christian, to God. So we did, and next thing I know, this is how she did it. It was so funny. My wife, I was at work, and my wife calls me. And if you know anything about my wife, you know, she is a great driver, except when she sneezes, because when she sneezed, she got into an accident. I don't know how that happens. Anyways, Joel's never heard that one. But anyways, she gave me a call, and she goes, "Hey, Tony, are you sitting down?" And I'm going, "What, did you crash the car?" She goes, "No, I didn't crash the car." I said, "Well, then what's going on?" She goes, "Well, I want to ask you, do you like Mr. Good Bars or Sugar Daddies, actually?" And I'm going, "No, I don't like Sugar Daddies." After she figured out that didn't work, then she said, "We need a bigger car." And I go, "Are you pregnant or something?" And she goes, "Yes, we are." So anyways, I had to share that piece with you that it was exciting. That was the second one to know. But Lena is awesome, and she's a bundle of joy. I want to also tell you how I met Joel. This is my bestie. This is my best friend. He puts up with all my crazy. And as an artist myself, I can go crazy, you know. As artists, you know that. So we met him. We both live in Estacada, and he is a leader of a nonprofit. And I wanted to find out more about this nonprofit. So I texted him like anybody does in the middle of the night and asked him to tell me a little bit more about it because he's up in the middle of the night that I didn't know that time. And so he told me a little bit about it, and he invited us to a Backing the Blue event. And I have a friend who's a police officer, which you're going to hear more about as we travel this journey of Backwoods Brothers. But long story short, I really got to meet this guy, and he's passionate about people. He's passionate about service. He's passionate about a lot of things that connected with me, and the rest is history. Awesome. Joel.
Man, Tony, you had a lot to say there real quick. It was awesome, man.
Did you like that?
It was awesome. You got right to the point.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved that.
Were you surprised?
No.
He was surprised.
You talk for a living. You're a professional counselor, so you got a chance to share the story and got right out. And you gave me lots of extra time to talk.
Really? Well, I could talk more.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So I'm Joel. For those who don't know me, I have a extensive background of different things that I do, but I want to talk about my family first because they are one of the most important things in my life besides God. So I have a wife, Brandy. Many of you guys watching probably already know her. And I have a little rugrat. Her name is Riley. She's 8 years old. And she loves, I made the mistake one day of asking God for patience. And then he gave me Riley. No, I love her. She's awesome. She is adorable. And she does definitely test our patience, as most kids would, right?
Yeah, but I have to also say that you guys are alike. So it's like this power struggle.
Oh yeah,
it's
we bonk heads. We both have the exact same stubborn genes.
But she wins.
Yeah, well, of course she's cute and adorable, and all she says to say is "I love you, Daddy."
Oh.
And then it's
As a dad, I feel that. Right here.
Anyways, but yeah, so that's my family. They are who are the core and center of who I am. Besides, like I said, placing my faith and foundation on God and Jesus Christ. So a little bit about me. I'm a veteran, served in Afghanistan, which I'll get a little bit later. Also, currently I am an elected official with the with the city of Estacada as a counselor. I run the, as he mentioned, Estacada nonprofit named Estacada Community Watch, who does all sorts of great things, feeds people, fixes problems like as far as like trees going down, and big relief center during the fires. Let's see, we also started, Tony and I started this show together, of course. Full-time student. I work full-time as a job. I have a full-time job. Also, let's see, we also have a new website we launched called Soapbox Ninja.
Yes.
So, as you can hear live,
I think dinner's ready.
I think dinner's ready. Hear things going off in the back. So.
Yep.
But it is what it is. The
anything can happen live.
Exactly.
Here we go.
It threw me way off. But yeah. So basically, that's kind of my foundation is just you know, basically serving the people of Estacada, serving people, trying to do what we can to help people where we can, and being able to really invest in my family. So that's kind of the core foundation of me.
You mentioned something about serving, and I met you serving, leading this nonprofit during fires that we've had in Oregon. If you're with us and you're watching from Estacada, you know we've been through quite the traumatic event and of being displaced. And the nonprofit Estacada Community Watch was formed as a relief type of center, giving out food and clothing and whatnot. And so it was really key to our community pulling together all of our resources and making sure those things happen.
And that's exactly what happened. We got a chance to show the world during that kind of just how Estacada was as a community. How they came together. We literally had hundreds of volunteers, including people from outside the area as well. I think we're still counting up everything that came in during that, but I want to say it was somewhere in the range of probably about $400,000 to $500,000, maybe even a lot higher, of what was donated and given out to people in the area. And we literally fed thousands and thousands of people. Of like cars that passed through to pick up stuff. Was thousands upon thousands, and that's families, and families, you know, it could be 3 to 5 people or more. I think we even had lots of boxes too. And it's literally, you know, I would say we're right around 3,000 families where we're estimating. Some people came in, didn't always get a box or something, they got other stuff. And so, you know, that could have been an upwards of 15 and by the people of Estacada. So.
Wow. And the interesting part about that, Joel, is you got to see the best of people, didn't you?
Completely. I got to see people come in the time when their worst time too. They just people down there who just lost their house were down there serving, and that's really gave me hope for people, because today you see so many issues with controversial conversations and people tearing each other down online and butting heads, and even own family members can't even have a conversation. So that's what's been so big. And now when I got to see things like that, I got to see the good in people and what people, you know, are capable of. And that's really kind of helped me continue to move along in what I'm doing. So, and I mean, that's part of what led us to do the show, because, I mean, the tagline of our show is, you know, authentic conversation
with hearty dialogue.
Exactly. And so, and that's what we want to kind of get across to everybody, is that it's okay to have a hard conversation.
Yes.
You don't have to agree with everybody that you meet with, but it's okay to leave with a differing opinion.
Because at the end of the day, we're Backwoods brothers. Or wait a minute, Backwoods. I just said Backwoods.
Wow.
How many of you guys are going to say Backwoods? Before this show is over and on our 30th show, we will stop saying Backwards. We'll say Backwoods.
We probably said our show name Backwoods Brothers. About 1,000
But you're
times.
backwards, though.
I'm a little backwards.
But I'm a brother.
Yeah, so
brother
we're
from
all
another
there.
mother. Okay, just
So,
something to say.
you know, if I should get that domain and just slip it into our other one.
But
What I wanted to get portrayed is that we're going to have hard conversations on here that are really like big ticket items all across the U.S. and we're going to bring them right down to a local level as best we can, and have conversations with people that don't always agree with us. But it's okay.
And you know, the best thing about this show is that we get to, as a counselor, I am pulling in some of my knowledge from counseling. One of the things that counselors love to do is we love to listen. So I'm going to try to do more listening than talking. And each time, throughout the year, I'm going to be pulling in pieces. What makes this unique is I'm going to be pulling in pieces of what active listening looks like. So I'm going to be talking about pairing which means parroting, which means repeating what that person says, but not verbatim. So it's going to be really fun to pull those pieces in.
Exactly, and we're going to run into live issues on here constantly. Like, for example, in order to increase our volume without having to touch our stuff, our producer should use features like the gain.
Ah.
So, yeah, we're just little things like that.
What will we gain from that conversation?
Gain from that type of conversation is going to teach him how to raise us up without having to us to reach for our packs and turn it up.
Well, speaking of raising us up, I should actually get you right now to talk about certain things.
Yes, because as you can see, we actually have a plan.
Yes.
I don't know if that's showing up because the whole background.
If you can't see the plan, I can't either. But here we go. I just made a joke, and I'm going to tell that story next session or whatever you want to talk about next week or the week after next. So we are on the 2nd and 4th week of every month. Joel.
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, my background comes from being in the military.
Yeah.
I served from first originally from 2002. I went in. Some things happened. I didn't have proper paperwork for me to get in with psoriasis. Psoriasis is a skin condition I have, and an autoimmune. Get into that in another. We're going to talk about that in the future episode. But when I went in, I didn't have the paperwork, so I'd gone almost to the end of the training, not just the basic training, but also the job training too. When they sent me home, I fought for a couple years, got the paperwork, and joined the National Guard in 2005. I served from 2005 to 2011, and I did one tour in Afghanistan, and I was an Army medic. So the tour I did was actually an extended tour, which means that my unit deployed over. They went home, and I had chosen volunteer to stay with the next unit and served a good portion of the time there. And I actually didn't get to finish that tour. I was there for a total about a year and a half in Afghanistan because my wife had gotten sick and in the hospital. I had to come home for it.
Yeah.
Which my wife has lupus and fibromyalgia and a bunch of other stuff, which again we'll talk about in a different episode. So during that time in Afghanistan, I saw a lot of things. The local nationals is something I treated a lot of, women and kids. I had to treat a lot of my good friends, and I had to track them where they went across the world, getting paperwork done, flying around, going to missions, rockets and bullets and everything else shot at me. I'm summarizing really short here because one is time, and two is I don't want to get too much into detail just yet on those type of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can tell you that going over there, the training you receive, the things that you see, it changes who you are. Yeah. You don't come back the same person. You can't see. You can't go to war and see the things between death, destruction, chaos, hatred. You can't see those things and come back normal. There's something that's going to change in you. You may be able to operate normal, but there's something that's changed in you. And that's what we call PTSD. And PTSD comes in all sorts of levels and all sorts of embodiments. So that might be from when you hear sounds, smells, even sometimes just mentioning PTSD can get you on edge. It gives you a type of a feeling. There's things like survivor's guilt and everything else that comes along with it. Now, I'm not an expert at PTSD. I've just gone through about 10 years of counseling on it. And so that's why I'm able to talk about it a little bit. And not everybody's gone through that type of stuff. Yeah. But it was hard for me. I came home, and for 6 months, all I wanted to do was shut doors, keep the house clean. Everything had to be in order, controlled, maintained. I wanted discipline. It just had to be in order because when you're in Afghanistan or you're in any sort of war zone, or the military in general, everything's a mission. You have a mission, you go out, you accomplish your mission, you come back, you get your rest, and you pack up and ready to go to the next mission. Everything you do has a purpose, has a drive to it. You're orderly, you have rules and expectations to follow. You wake up the next day, you're getting orders to do the next thing. You know what you're going to do. Your day's planned out for you. It's set. That is the military. And there's a sense that builds in you and attracts certain people. And well, not everybody in the world is going to fit to that model, but it's the type of people that sit there that do well in there is the type of personality that goes over to Afghanistan. And it really let's go somewhere with that. Sorry. It kind of gets me in a mindset when I'm talking about this, but yeah. But when you getting into that personality, that's the type of personality where you you serve, you sacrifice, you're there to help people, and you take that protector mentality, and it's not just something that they can't train that into you. Yeah. Honestly, they can't train that into you. That is a core of who you are. Every soldier, especially every police officer, every person who serves in like a firefighter who basically answers that call is somebody that has a piece built into them, and it's not a hero complex. It's a sense and need to protect somebody, yes. To stand up between the foes or the ways of the world or the enemy and that person and stand in the gap.
Joel, you helped me understand that a little bit when we were at lunch, or actually at dinner at Red Robin, and we were talking, and you mentioned something about the word safe. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was an eye-opener. As a counselor who counsels veterans who have been overseas to fight in deployment or to be a part of the military, I never saw as a civilian, or I never felt as a civilian, that the word safe would mean as much as it means to you. Can you explain a little bit of that?
So when as a veteran, so if something's going on and someone says, do you feel safe? Yeah. In a lot of cases, normally that's an expected word, especially if you have issues. People want to feel safe. But when a veteran or someone who normally takes on that protective position, wants to be that shield, yeah. Safe is something that we don't take in the same way. We feel like the words, do you feel safe? How does that make you feel? Things like that. It exposes a sense of vulnerability in us, yeah. That yeah. Makes us feels like we're not living up to the position as a shield, as a protector, and it kind of puts us off center, off ease, and we just don't like the word sometimes, because we want to make sure you feel safe. We want to stand between you and what makes you feel unsafe, wow. So that you can go on, with comfort in your life. We're willing to stand and take that discomfort for you to have that comfort. And
so
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So it must be really difficult to go into a therapeutic setting and have someone ask you if you feel safe, because it's almost like stripping you of an identity.
Kind of, yes. And it's like I said, it's hard to explain. And those out there who sit in the same type of position I do understand that very much. Yeah. So when my counselor, I spoke with her, mainly I've been going to her for years, not so much with COVID, but I had to talk to her a lot about, hey, when you ask me, how does that make you feel? Do you feel safe? It makes me kind of disconnect a little bit for a short period. Yeah. Because I don't want to hear the rest of that, because it makes me feel vulnerable, kind of gets that little uneasy feeling. It makes me kind of stir in my chair, because that's not what I'm concerned about. And it's always the other way. And it's always a mission and a goal to step forward onto that.
A mission and a goal.
Mission and a goal. I mean, that's how I've always operated. That's how people that I've been around that are military oriented operate, is a mission and a goal. So,
hey, how do you come back off of deployment under such a regimented schedule to do whatever you want?
It was definitely hard, definitely different. Like I said, it took like the first 6 months. Like my wife will definitely attest to this if you talk to her. She'll tell you, door shut, house orderly, cleaning everything, get the paperwork done, everything. It was one mission after the next. I had to go from one point to the next. If things were out of place, it threw me off and upset me. And so I had to get things back in place, and then I could move forward. Everything had to be orderly. And it took me a while to realize this isn't normal. This is normal for like a military or being in Afghanistan. That made perfect sense. You had to have that structure. You had to have that compression. But back home, that wasn't normal. So after about 6 months, I said, you know what? I think I need to talk to somebody, see what happens. Mm-hmm. And so I started talking to somebody. But that's the thing that people may not understand too, is that in Afghanistan, because it's always mission oriented, you always do the next step, you always keep going, that there's never time to decompress. Yeah. To let those things that you see when you see you're surgically amputating your buddy's leg, mm-hmm. or you're dragging somebody behind cover who just took a hit with a mortar, mm-hmm. or took a few rounds. or you're trying to deal with a screaming kid because they were just had gasoline thrown on and set on fire, things like that. Those aren't things that you can stop and think about, because when you in the midst of a gun battle or in the midst of someone's emergent situation, when you stop to think, that could be the cost of their life. So you compress all that down. Just keep compressing. Keep driving forward. Keep compressing, compacting it. Keep driving forward. Don't think about it. Move, move, move. When you come home, you don't have that mission. Like you said, you try to set those missions.
Yeah.
You try to move forward, but you don't have all that. So when you slow down, all that everything starts to decompress a little bit, and all those things start coming to the surface.
Yeah.
And those things that, as my PTSD counselor described to me, is the seeing all those things.
Yeah.
It's scars. They've seen through scans that they actually seen physical scars in people's brains.
Yes.
From PTSD. It's trauma.
Reformation. Yeah.
Yep. And so because you see those type of physical, but also you can see the it changes who you are. So those type of changes are starting to come to the surface a little bit, and you have to start to figure out how to live your life accordingly, but not let it ruin your life, but instead try to figure out how you can cope with it. Yeah. And a lot of us cope in different ways. Some people cope with drugs, alcohol. Some of us some of us cope with just hiding from the world. Some of us cope with
isolation,
working a lot, constantly keeping yourself busy.
Yep.
Which is more along my lines. Some of them cope when they just sometimes it's bursts of anger. Some of it's it's just anything. I mean, there's all sorts of different things people do, and there's other ones which is a big issue, and that's the suicide rate of veterans. It's pretty big. So there's just a lot of ways that people try to self-medicate and treat, and it doesn't always work out, of course. And so it's one of my PTSD issues is when I start thinking about those things, I lose.
Absolutely.
I get the cloud mind a little bit. So bear with me. So I totally lost track where I was going with that.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Now you guys saw what that looks like. Even reviewing it and talking about it brings up feelings. And said, Joel, about how that compression happens because you have a mission, and when you come home, normal. What I like to call it in counseling is getting used to a new norm.
That makes sense.
It's a new norm. So you're actually literally traveling this, what you're used to, what you've been training for, society, and see how that works for you. And so you're constantly, even talking about it now, you're constantly beginning to unpack you again.
Exactly. And I accept the fact that I'm never going to have the old me back. It's been hard for my wife to try to engage and to understand that. And
the old you.
And so, so we're up, coming back from there is over the years, even 10 years later, we're still dealing with trying
10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I got back in 2011.
Yeah.
Well, 2010, sorry, 2010. I was out of the military in 2011. Here it is 2021, so it's been 10 years. My wife and I have only been married for 13 years.
Yeah.
So I was only married to her for...
That's a long time.
Yeah, granted,
granted,
yes.
That's a long time.
Granted,
Yeah.
so, but what I'm getting to there though is, we were only married for a couple years, if even that, when I deployed, and so there was a big fear of that too.
So what she had to go through is saying goodbye to her husband. Can I just say real fast about the American flag? I just found out it meant so much to them because while you were gone, that's what she held on to, was the American flag. So she can put her mindset in the mindset of a mission. You were on mission, and so she released you to be on mission. Which leads me to, in a minute that we have left, it leads me to ask you one question. I've always wondered this, what is proper to say to someone in the military as a civilian when I want to thank you for your service? Because I've heard a lot of what not to say and what to say, and I don't know what to say.
Thank you for your service. I mean, it really is that simple, because I mean, everybody's going to take it differently, and I never know what to say back. I mean, because if we don't do it for a thank you, we do it because it's who we are. And so having someone say thank you, it's like, we appreciate that. We just don't know how to respond ourselves. It's just as much off-putting for us to say, oh, you're welcome, or well, thanks, or something like that, as it is for you to have to go up and try to approach somebody and say thank you for your service. People are uncomfortable. We're also trying to figure out what to say too, because we don't have ourselves in the mind like, hey, I served for you. You owe me a thank you. I sacrificed you. My brothers died for you. No, we don't have the mindset.
Wow.
We have the mindset of, hey, I fought for you. Because in my sense, it's because as a follower of Christ, I love you. Yeah. But as a sense of a soldier, and as a sense of a soldier, it's just
Yeah.
I chose to serve my country, and I answered my call.
Yeah.
So,
Joel, I want to say this to you. Thank you for your service.
thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, we want to thank you and appreciate it. We're going to go on a break here, and we have a video. Please stick around and watch the video. We think it'll mean a lot to you, and it really kind of gets you going for the next session.
And real fast, grab your kids, not grab your kids, grab your kids, have them come, join us. Everybody, we'll see you soon.
Good. We off?
My name is Staff Sergeant David Crockett, United States Army.
My name is Tyler Southern. I was a corporal in the United States Marine Corps.
Just outside of Samara, Iraq, we were hit with a massive IED.
We were given accurate intelligence that were up to 6 Taliban held up in a compound.
Instantly, just a blast of hot air just came over me, and an intense pressure that you couldn't imagine.
We all split up and took different sides. I led my team to the far side, which was laced with 4 IEDs.
At that point, it basically rendered me unconscious for 45 minutes. I was in and out for about an hour until I basically kind of came to in a field hospital at Fob Spiker in Tikrit.
We all missed the first one on the front corner and turkey peeking a doorway. I stepped on the second. 10 pounds of homemade explosives, pressure plate IED, buried 6 inches, detonated immediately.
I've been home about 6 months now, and I still have my doubts. I'm not sure how I got here or how I'm gonna get out. And my mama says I look the same as I did before I left. But if she could see inside of me, it would scare her to death. I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun. I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run." I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, got it weighed a ton. And I see death in every single thought. They taught me how to put that uniform on. I just can't get it off. That Saturday they honored us in a small parade downtown. When they shot off those fireworks, I nearly hit the ground. While they smiled and cheered for us, all I could do was stare. 'Cause part of me is here at home, but part of me is back there. And I can still taste the powder from the barrel of my gun. And I can hear my sergeant screaming, "Run, soldier, run." I can feel the backpack on my shoulders, got it weighed a ton. And I
I've prided myself on finding the silver lining in absolutely every situation. No matter how hard it is to find, there is a bright side to everything. I may have been relieved of 3 of my original issued limbs, but that gave me the opportunity to find true love, family, made him a possibility. You know, you might have to widen your gaze, but it's there.
Is mic's on?
Yep. Is mine on? Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back. You know, you might see a third person joining us here on my left, and the cool thing about this is Clint and I have been friends for almost about what?
Going on 2 years.
Going on 2 years, but it feels like forever because this guy is an awesome open book. He's also a warrior, and so I'm actually finding myself between 2 warriors right here. So as we talked about in our last segment, I feel pretty safe. Anyways, we would love to start having a conversation as they're laughing at me. We're going to start having a conversation with Clint. And just like Joel, he has a story too as well to share. And you might see some similarities or hear some similarities between the two because they have a shared experience. So, Clint, we're glad that you're here. And we ask you not to be shy, okay? We're family.
Not to.
All right, here we go.
All right, well, let's see. I joined the Army back in 2002 also. I made it over to Iraq. I was active duty. Ended up going to Iraq for 2 deployments. First one was February of 2003. Came home March in 04. Went back in February of 05 and came home March of 06. So I've had plenty of time over in the desert, and it wasn't always a bad experience. I can't say that it was. I learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about pretty much everything that you can think of in life. I mean, you get thrown right in, and there's no holding back. And active duty, I think, was probably better for me. I don't know about how it was for you going home after all of that. Like, I don't think that I could have decompressed on my own like the National Guard guys had to, because when I got home, I still had my mission. You know, I didn't go back to going to work 9 to 5 and trying to get back into normal life. My normal life was Army. So it was constant mission all the time. It was...
Can I ask you real fast? You said get back to normal life, and maybe that's a good way to start. Tell us about your kids and...
I've got, let's see, 5 kids total, 4 boys and a girl. I wasn't married during the time I was deployed. I didn't get married until after I came back from my second deployment. So, like, when it came from Joel and the change that he was talking about, my family didn't get to know who I was prior to military service. They only got to know the guy that came home from the service. Like, my parents and brothers and sisters, they got to see that difference, but my family that I was with constantly, they didn't really ever get to see that change.
Right. You're a PK.
I am.
What is a PK?
I'm a pastor's kid. My dad pastored Foursquare for a little over 20 years. And I grew up out in Butte, Montana, actually. Montana, I would say, would probably be the best place in the world, in my opinion. I love Montana.
It's absolutely beautiful, at least in my opinion, until you get to like the east half, and then it's just like
Yeah.
like North Dakota. You have to really have a special appreciation for the beauty there.
Most definitely. Going across the border from eastern Montana into North Dakota, they have a big billboard now that says mountain removal project complete.
There you go.
And it's still there to this day.
Hope you guys caught that.
Yeah.
There is
So-
not a single mountain in North Dakota.
Well, I remember sitting on. They say you could sit on one side of the state and look across, and you can wave to your friend on the other side. So, and instead of mountains, they have indents.
There you go.
So,
Trenches.
yeah,
There
the
you go.
Badlands.
The Badlands was fun.
Oh, it's beautiful though, especially if you get it the right time during spring. They're like, there's like a couple seasons. There's road construction.
Yep.
Yep, and then there's winter, which is about 12 months. Not 12 months. I'm sorry.
You
about
got
6
9
months.
months of winter.
9
and
months,
then
there you go.
got 3 months of road construction.
Yeah,
So you're
exactly what it
absolutely
is. 9 months winter.
Wow.
3 months of road construction.
Wow.
Yeah.
The-
In
the- the-
Montana, it's, let's see. Like I said, active duty. I ended up getting hurt. I got hit with an IED while I was over there and had my spine broken. Had some brain damage stuff happen. A lot of issues came out of that. Got to come home. I've got a full retirement out of the military. Like I was in for 20 years.
Full retirement.
Yeah,
Wow.
I got to keep all my benefits and everything. I've got just fully retired. They did. I think it had to do with time and service or something. I'm not entirely sure how it all worked out. I wasn't fully there in my brain.
Right.
Don't worry, that's a
So-
constant state for me, anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, it was fun. I really learned a lot. Going to other countries, you learn about their culture. You learn about what it is like to be over there, and it gives you a whole different sense of what it's like to actually be here in America and the things that we get. I mean, it's insane the difference.
Yeah.
What's the
that you get
difference?
to see?
Differences from seeing what you saw.
Oh, just
There.
technology for one. I mean, here everybody's got cars and everybody's got TVs and this, that, and the other.
3 sometimes.
When I was driving, we'd be in convoys, and these kids would be running up to the convoys just to get food.
Wow.
They don't even get to eat most of the time. None of them have vehicles. I mean, a lot of the little villages and places where we would go through for our missions and stuff would just be shacks, basically.
Mhm.
And like once in a while, you would find an oasis out in the middle of nowhere, and you would see tents and stuff, just like you would think from the Middle East. But those tents were massive and wonderful. But at the same time, we would see that here in America, and be like, "What in the world is that?" You know?
Yeah.
Because that's what we would see up and down the streets here. But that's their homes over there.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember there's an area we go is actually right across the road from where we did our shooting range at off base, and I remember going out there in dead of winter. It's like right down below, and there's a canopy right there, and just a simple as just a little kind of lean-to tile tent. One you see like in the old school camping, and one side was open, there, and there was nothing else for them except for the fire outside to get warm in. And yeah, I remember that, and then I was thinking, man, that's crazy. Or the large amounts of trash that were right outside of our base. I remember this hill. You couldn't see the ground. It was just trash everywhere from outside the base to the gate there. And it looked like they basically had like a dump we have for our dumps here. It looked like they had just leveled it out and built a city on top of it. But that's how much trash it was, but it was actually, ground. So, I mean, was it like that in Iraq?
Not in as many places. Iraq, honestly, didn't get near minus 10 degrees. We were more along the lines of, 120 in the shade, And the destruction and most of the trash and garbage that I saw mainly came from actually the Gulf War. The roads were still full of holes and stuff from the Gulf War, and most of the garbage was just dumped stuff from back then. Planes and things just piled up on the sides of the roads, and it was not from them being their trash and stuff. It was just trash from the wars from before. I mean, that country has been riddled with war forever. So it's just piled up from one to the next to the next to the next. It's horrible looking.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember in Afghanistan, it's very common we had mines everywhere.
Yeah.
When the Russians couldn't take over the country,
Mhm.
they said that there's I forget the exact quote, but it was basically along the lines of your generations for generations will deal with our mines. And they
Oh, for
they
sure.
put millions of mines everywhere. So I remember the miners when they
That are
would-
obviously not detonated, but
not detonated, but
generations and generations were going
yeah,
to feel
they
that.
would still be.
They will
could-
still blow if you step
Yeah,
on.
they
Wow.
like you would be familiar with a like your own yard, or maybe how to turn in this way that to get to your street. They would be just as familiar with walking the pathways to get around the area, not to step on the mines. So, and they'd get really good at that. And so, I mean, did they have mines over in Iraq or anything?
No, not as many mines. Most of the stuff that we were dealing with was more along the lines of planted IEDs.
Gotcha,
and
yeah.
Things like that.
Where were they? On the sides of roads?
They would put them anywhere that they could come up with. Animal carcasses, trash, just lying behind the railroad or the road linings where you would knock off the road. Where we call those the barriers to keep you from going off the side of the road.
Oh yeah, like a
Stick
curb.
them to the
That's correct.
outside on the back of them where we wouldn't be able to see them, and things like that. They got really smart for a while, and they would just take strands of rubber and put tons of nails inside of them and use those as the detonators.
Just push it down.
Well, no, we'd run over them, and it would catch it up. It'd be a pull
Oh.
style. So once we get over our tires, that cord would wrap up into the tire, and it would pull and flow the vehicle behind that.
Oh well, I never seen one of those. Yeah.
And the
It
interesting-
got interesting.
Well, the interesting part about this, you guys, is most of us who are civilians, again, we don't know what it's like to be in a state of readiness because anything could happen. What we think looks normal could be something that will take your life.
Most of the things in Iraq when I was out there, if you thought it was normal, it was going to be the thing that took your life.
Yeah, most things aren't normal at all. I remember that.
And it's everything, anything and everything. I mean, you would think that it would be just fine. A Coke can could take your life. You know, and for years and years coming home, I couldn't drive down the roads really. Because anything that was on the side of the road, I was trying to swerve or miss. I got pulled over, I don't know how many times coming home. Playing Pac-Man, that's what we used to call it, driving the center of the line. Because when we were in Iraq, you don't drive on one side or the other.
Exactly.
You take the center of the road. And
You
so
told
I
me
would
this.
play Pac-Man for years.
How about
Yes.
the thing that was absolutely despised was when you had construction in the road and it cut it and made you filled it with gravel or something like that. A little
Yes.
where they may have fixed the road and patched it and stuff. Couldn't drive over. Hated driving over culverts.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
For years, it's been an issue.
There was a road outside of Williston that headed towards, I think it was Newtown is what it was called. It's been a while now. But that road looked just like some of the roads we used to travel in Afghanistan, minus the hills. But just the way that the sides of it would come into and the look and basically everything looked around minus the hills. And so I was at 150% the time I was there. Couldn't sleep. It was just, so it made my stomach sick and everything when I would go and that road. So it's I definitely I hated that, especially because it's like everything I see constantly was that is a point that they could draw you in and you could be ambushed from. So
So not only afraid of things exploding, but even afraid of ambushes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
well, usually with a lot of times with an IED, they're usually in ambushes.
And accompanying that.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
I'd say
That
at
was
least
just an attention getter.
I'd say
Wow.
That would get you up.
I'd say
Wow.
4 times out of 5 there's usually someone with a camera around too, maybe even more
Oh,
than that.
yes, they had to record that.
Yeah, exactly. So you could use your network or something later. So
You say you learned a lot about yourself in deployment, and can you give some examples of that?
When it comes to that, it's you learn what you're willing to do and what you are not willing to do. And when it comes to your life, a lot of times you'll figure out that there's not much that you're not willing to do.
There's
To-
not much.
yeah.
There's not much that you're not willing to do.
When you're trained properly, you will put the end goal mission. You will put your end goal and mission before yourself or anything else. There's not going to be a choice. If it's your life or whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as that mission and goal is completed, the rest just goes away.
because if you, I mean, the way, at least in my head, if I start thinking about back home, my wife, something else like that, that means I'm going to miss something when I'm on mission.
Mhm.
And if I miss something, not only could it cost me my life, but I could be missing something that could
Cost somebody else.
the whole unit.
Yeah. I was fortunate. I didn't have to worry about thinking like that. Like I said, I didn't meet my wife or anything until after I came home. So I spent a lot of time volunteering for missions because a lot of my friends had wives and kids and stuff like that. And I would volunteer so they wouldn't have to go out and do those things because they had a wife and kids where I didn't have to. I didn't have to think about what was at home. So I think that was kind of an advantage for me personally versus having to sit there like people that were married and wonder, you know, what's this next step going to take? You know, what's this going to cost me?
So, you know, I talked a little bit when I was talking about kind of some of the things I dealt with when I got home. And since a big focus of our subject here is going to be talking about veterans benefits that are coming up soon, why don't you give me a little bit of an idea of some of the struggles you had when you came home, not just from a PTSD standpoint, please touch on that, but maybe some of the trying to work with the Veterans Affairs and things, if you don't mind.
So when I first got back, I didn't really care to know that there was something wrong with me. I drank a lot, the self-medication thing that you guys were talking about. I was a blackout alcoholic for 11 years straight. Even active duty, I would black out, drink every night, and wake up with somebody waking me up in my car to go to PT the next day. And it costed me, honestly, my marriage. It costed pretty much everything because I didn't know and didn't want to know that I had a problem with anything. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't care. Even being active duty as an NCO, I didn't even want to talk to my own soldiers. I didn't want anybody to even come in, and if they wanted to go to school, I would tell them to go find somebody else. Like, I just did not want to be a part of life, period, at that point. And I've tried to go to the VA quite a few times. I'm not the best at it, if I'm going to be honest. I have a problem with the counselors and psychiatrists when I go to the VA because it's not a personal thing. It's more of a this is you're up kind of deal. Pick a number. It's the same questions. They always ask. It's the same thing. Treat you the same way. And I just didn't think that they were qualified to be able to talk to me about a lot of the things that I'm thinking because they've got book smarts, and I don't want to discredit anybody's book smarts because I personally don't have those, but I have personal experience in an area that if you don't have that personal experience, I have a hard time talking to somebody about it.
Absolutely.
But and then when it comes to getting the benefits and stuff, I don't recommend anybody doing it the way I did. I went to a meeting with somebody, and they were talking to my ex-wife, and I just figured I didn't need to be a part of it. So I got up and just walked out, and they sat there and did their thing, and I had been in and out of the psychiatric facilities trying to deal with things at that point before I ever got my benefits. So they kind of, the lady that my ex-wife was speaking to at the time, like, took my packet and had a meeting with the district people the next day and took it to the office and was basically like, this guy needs some help. Because at that point, I wasn't working for 9 months. I didn't leave my 2-bedroom townhouse. And
Did you not leave out of fear or just not want to leave isolation?
Not fear of myself. It was fear of what I was going to do to anybody that looked at me.
Okay. Okay.
And then from that point, I still stayed in the house for another 6 months after that. And then remember the first time I decided that I was done with living that way? Mm-hmm. It took everything in me to walk in the front door of a Walmart, walk to the back wall, and just touch it. I didn't want to shop. I didn't want to do nothing. I just walked in to touch the back wall and come back out. And it took everything in me just to be able to do that.
Why was that? What was that?
Because I was afraid of what I was going to do.
Gotcha.
I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to act. Mm-hmm. I was angry all the time. I was drunk all the time. I had things in my head that I just didn't want to deal with.
But going back to Walmart just to touch it, was kind of giving you that courage to...
That was a step in the, this isn't going to control me anymore.
Wow.
And I mean, I want to point out, in knowing you on a personal level, we've had the conversation about it, but you know, your faith lies in Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so when you were struggling with all that, you know, how you're doing to even today, I can see that you know, you're doing so much better today. And
Yes, and it has to do 100% with my personal relationship with the Lord.
so
I would tell that to anybody. I have many of my friends that was there with me, went through everything with me, and they're no longer here with us. They have taken their own lives because they couldn't handle it anymore. And when people ask me what the difference is, and I'll tell them the difference is I have that personal relationship with my Lord and Savior.
I want to piggyback off of that. Because of your relationship with your Lord and Savior, you're involved heavily in your church.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that. Because real fast, as a former pastor myself, when you get military, you get some help in church because they're loyal, you know.
Yeah. I just enjoy it. I've been blessed with being able to work with the youth group in my church, and for me it's a unique experience because I have boys in my family, and they're all going to grow up at some point and be where these kids are in this youth group. And in the Army and in everything in this day and age right now, everything that I see in life, it's all performance based. The way that I'm going to treat you or anybody has to do with the way you perform, how you do in school, how you treat anybody else. And that's, my love is contingent on your performance. And that's how it is anywhere. Jobs, your performance will get you something in life. It's bad. I want these kids to understand that I don't care what their performance is. I want to love them anyways and show them the love of Jesus, because in the end, that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
of course.
Thank you for your service.
Definitely, thank you. So you touched a little bit, and we mentioned earlier about the VA benefits and how you kind of were able to go in and you didn't have to go through as much of the process because, you know, you kind of, your wife took care of that, and you kind of had someone that took the packet in for you. But as we know, that's not the case for so many other veterans out there. And there's an actual process that people have to go through, and sometimes that process can take years and years.
Absolutely.
And it can be hard. And they spent the last few years, I'd say maybe over the last 4 or 5 years, really revamping that process, and it's doing much better now. But it's still a process. And I just want to direct everybody that is watching real quick right now that on backwoodsbrothers.com, we released an article, and it gives you, if you're just getting started with this process or maybe in the middle of the process, it's going to give you all of the steps from before you start all the way up until when you get your stuff, get your benefits. That's for disability benefits and stuff. It's going to give you all the steps, some suggestions, tips, links, resources, the big resource page. It even has some places you can go, like the DAV, and also it has some stuff about the when you go through the appeals process, which is something that even today I'm still dealing with a little bit. So I was, when I first applied for it, I was over in Williston doing some work, and a buddy of mine says, who was on VA disability as well, he had said, you need to apply for this so you can get the benefits of treatment, so they recognize some injuries you've got, so you can get the treatment for that, and so it kind of basically opens up a world of benefits for treatment through the VA. Because just because you serve, yes, you get some benefits with the VA, but a lot of those injuries have to be recognized before they're willing to put time and money into treating. Otherwise, they're going to try to look for other insurance, charge you a bill.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of different approaches that you get to look at that, and it gets complicated. But what I want to focus is on today is getting those benefits through the disability. Sorry to spit on you.
No, you didn't. No, you're good.
Anyway, so
I should have an umbrella.
Yeah, an umbrella. If you see him next on the next segment with an umbrella, you'll know. So along that process, it basically started with me going online, doing some reading with it, trying to figure out what the heck to do, calling some VA sources saying, hey, I'd like to get this started, what's it take? I went to my VA doctor and asked him about it. I was confused, didn't really know what to do. I heard about the DAV. There just wasn't a good organization to try to figure this thing out.
What's the DAV, just for us?
Disabled American Veterans.
As a matter of fact, the DAV is the people that processed all the stuff for me. I
Yeah.
went to a DAV appointment, and it was just that one lady. Her name was Sylvia, and I honestly don't think she's there. That's the only thing I remember really about the whole process was that lady's name. She was just a nice lady.
And the DAV's been great. It's more, they do a lot more than just help you with the disability benefits. They have all sorts of stuff from helping with, treat you with PTSD and giving you other resources and helping veterans that are in need. There's a lot of them out there. You got the VFW and all these other different organizations out there that are for veterans and that'll help you along this process. And I talk about them in the article. But the once I kind of started to get a better idea how to get this sorted, the first person to actually turn the paperwork in for me was the DAV. When finally got an appointment with them, sat down, turned the paperwork in, they got it in, and then I heard nothing. It was basically crickets for a long time.
For a long time.
Finally, I learned about e-benefits, and through e-benefits, I was able to start slowly in a very bad kind of figure out what I'm doing.
What's
Track-
e-benefits?
It's e-benefits is like a website where you can, as a veteran, you can get into it. You register through it. You have to, they verify you're an actual veteran, and they connect you up with resources. You can check all your disability VA compensation, your schooling, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff on there now. You can connect to like your health records and stuff.
And everything that you need from your own personal experience in military life, everything is on that one portal for yourself.
And they're doing even more and more stuff getting connected to it. When I first started back in the day, it didn't have a whole ton.
Yeah.
But now it has a lot more.
Including housing, anything that you need?
Anything that someone might need, there's resources in there, but I mean, they're still improving on it and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you have to go through the headache process of getting yourself signed up for it. And that sometimes can be a little bit harder. The DAV can't help you get signed up for it, though, if you stop in there.
In the next segment, we're going to be talking a little bit about those headaches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's definitely going to be an interesting segment to kind of talk about some of the problems and the frustrations that kind of came in with that.
Yeah.
And later, definitely, those who are watching, we want to get engaged with you guys. So there's going to be a section for you guys to kind of reach out to us through the online chat, ask us questions. So you can start asking questions now that we'll answer during that period. But it's kind of a live interaction as we get questions, and we'll start answering them through the Q&A section. So
Yeah. We definitely welcome those. As my teacher used to say, there's no dumb questions, just unanswered ones.
Definitely.
Just made that
I don't know
up.
if I fully agree with that. there might be a few dumb questions in the world,
I had to ask
days.
you what I had to ask you what E benefits were, so there you go. So, okay.
But so as I started going through the process, I started watching it more, and I realized, hey, I can interact with this a little bit. There's some numbers for me to call, and I started calling and trying to figure out what they need. Eventually, when I came back I want to say it was when I came back from Wilson, it's been a little bit fuzzy for me now, is when they finally gave me the first set of benefits. They denied me on everything. I think the first couple times I appealed. I appealed the best I could through there just by clicking a button. I didn't know how to do any of the process. It was not very clear. And again, we'll touch those frustrations soon. But basically from there, I would go through and I would keep bugging them, doing what I could call. I sat on the phone for an hour here and there. Finally, they gave it to me, but they denied everything but 30%.
I was going to say, didn't you get about 60%?
30% when I first got it for PTSD, but my knee, my back, nothing like that was recognized.
Wow.
So it was a little frustrating, but like I said, we'll get into that later. What I really want to touch on is the process is not that way now. There's a lot better process, and the biggest portion in this process is getting the starting point done first, getting yourself prepped for it. Gather your records, gather your information, start getting treatment for the things you want to be recognized. Establish that point of care. All those things are critical. Having a good mapped out plan and what connects where, and kind of laying out that map together. The better you lay out your data and what makes sense there, and your stories and your witness statements if there's an injury and some witnesses to it. LOD paperwork, which is line of duty, something that usually when you get an injury in the military, they try to fill out this line of duty paperwork so you have a lot of the stuff for you when you go to get to the VA later. So getting all that together, making sure it's in line, and then filing your claim.
Can I ask you a quick question? Do they ask anything about pre-existing conditions going
Yes.
into?
Yes.
A lot of that happens also before you go to basic training.
That's what I was
So
thinking.
before you even leave to start anything, they have a list of pre-existing conditions so that they won't pay for that.
Well,
Right.
yeah, and the big
Right.
thing is, it's not just because you have a pre-existing condition. Don't think that, oh, my knee was a little bit sore when or had a little bit of an issue with my knee when I went in, but now I can barely move the thing because I racked it on something, fell off a truck or whatever might happen. They have something where they'll look at a pre-existing, but if it's been exasperated, made worse by the service, they'll recognize that, and then they'll work
Okay.
with you on the treatment there.
Okay.
So there is, pre-existing is not an immediate disqualifier, so don't think that that's the case. So, but that doesn't mean that just because you have a pre-existing condition, if it wasn't really exasperated, please, don't try to, because you have to, the biggest
That would
thing,
take away benefits from other.
and the biggest thing is you have to be honest, because you sign legal documents, and if they catch you doing the wrong thing, they're gonna prosecute you. But
That also takes away benefits from other veterans.
And
that
which is
absolutely
important.
Need it.
exactly. So
You're going to go through, and you're going to stay right here, you guys, and we're going to keep Clint here for a little bit, so you're not going anywhere. But as we had gone through the process, when we come back, we're going to actually, after this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the tension of trying to get some benefits. It also, there's a tension in getting SSI benefits, which we will talk about our next show. So we'll be back in 2 and 2, so stay right there, and we will see you soon.
And welcome back, guys. Thank you for taking a moment to see some ads from our some of our sponsors and people here. One of the sponsors.
Mwah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, what we try, we actually, I'm going to tell you what we titled this segment as is "Boom Goes the Dynamite." That's because what we want to talk about right now is our frustrations that we've had with not only the VA benefits, been trying to get those, but also the VA in general, I think, is a little bit, or just general kind of getting around treatment and things.
Joel, it's interesting that you said "Boom Goes to Dynamite" because I was thinking about our promo video, and when someone said "Hot Topics of Today," and then it just went to the.
Yeah.
So this is the point where I think also we're gonna implement active listening. Usually in our shows, we're gonna have this "Boom Goes to Dynamite" moment, and this is when you get into like real robust dialogue and hearty dialogue and all those types of things. So keep your hat on.
So definitely. Well, I mentioned earlier about the frustration with the way it went, and my key thing was, as a veteran who has fought and served for this country, someone who, held friends as they either passed away, like I said, moved a friend of mine's leg, basically went and sacrificed a portion of me, my family who sacrificed a portion of me. When I came back from Afghanistan, the last thing I should have had to deal with is another fight, and that's a fight to get my benefits.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I was already dealing with internal fights as it was, and granted, even when I came home, that was even 10 years after they spent recognizing people were out of war and they needed to start working on something.
Yeah.
And even today, so many of those fights are still going on. I mean, I fought to get my 30% and got denied on a bunch of stuff. From medical records being lost, and they suddenly showed back up when we had to get a lawyer and things to fight this thing. They suddenly appeared again in my records. From people just flat out denying it, from even the judge, when the judge had they going to the board and everything else, when they came back with their review, they even said, they basically put it on the VA and said, hey, you need to prove that he doesn't have these issues. You need to prove that he's not, he doesn't have an issue with his knees. He doesn't have an issue with his back. His PTSD isn't worse. Because when I read, because the judge actually put it in his paperwork, he said, when I read through what the records are, you guys know that it's identified as being worse, but then you denied him. So basically, they went through and they had to reevaluate and see where I was. At that point, they did raise my my PTSD level. It still took like 6 months after that ruling for them to do everything.
Yeah.
They raised my PTSD level a little bit, and they gave me the lowest rating they could give me for my knee and my back, because that's what they basically couldn't prove that it didn't happen. And that's despite having records and doctor's notes and everything else. So it seems like they just constantly want to fight the veterans. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm tired of it. Hold on, we're losing video.
I don't understand why it's doing this now. Can I just...
Yeah, I just manually figured out what's going on. Did you click something?
Well, I did, but I don't know why it would have dragged itself like that. Anyway, there we go.
Sorry, guys. He'll probably adjust that again, but from remotely when he gets ready. So,
Yeah, you were talking about
computer issues.
Yes, that's anything happens live.
Yep, that's a part of life. What was I talking about?
You're talking about fighting.
Yeah, so the last thing that any veteran really needs to be doing and really wants to be doing when they get back is fighting to get recognized for injuries that they received when they were in Afghanistan. I'm sure that's the last thing you wanted to do. You said yourself you didn't want to show up. Yeah. So I think it's absolute bullcrap that they make it so hard for them, and it shouldn't take years upon years for them to figure that out and get it fixed.
Absolutely.
And that's my frustration with it. It's just that the way that they're treated, it's like they're treated like we're all almost criminals, and like we want to just take the system for what it is. Well, we want is some recognition so we can get the treatment when we need it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Joel, you raised a good point, and I was just reading some information, but according to a study conducted by the RAND Center for Military Health Policy Research, less than half of returning veterans need mental health services receive any treatment at all. And of those receiving treatment for PTSD and major depression, less than 1/3 are receiving evidence-based care.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that you know, our brothers and sisters who fight there, they are going through this, and I mean, half of those people that are not receiving care are probably because they don't want to go through the problems that they're there.
Absolutely.
Despite and when you try to tell them that things are changing and getting fixed, they don't. They've already been scarred by it.
Absolutely.
So, and I mean, and despite DAV, VFW, what's some of the other ones out there?
American Legion.
American Legion, all these ones trying to fight to help those out, the veterans that need it out there. They're already scarred pretty heavily, and I mean, the government's still not making it easier for them. They reduce the time for appeals, they reduce the time to get it, but how they really reduce? I don't even know if they even reduce the denial rates. They don't have those numbers out yet. I mean, you have your own story on frustration with dealing with the VA outside of just a disability. You want to talk a little about that?
Well, with
Yeah, I think-
disability, mine wasn't so hard with that because a lot of the stuff that happened before I got out, because I have a retirement from active duty. So before you get out of active duty, you have to go through a debriefing process of getting out of the military. And in that part, you go to all these classes, and sometimes they'll bring in people from the VA to fill out paperwork with you. So a lot of the stuff
That's a good transition.
that happened, I wasn't a part of it because they already took care of it, you know, for me. And like for mine, I had a 90% on my first go. Like I was 90% on my very first time submitting anything.
What'd you call that process again?
The competent
Yep.
pension
Okay.
process. And like I said, I didn't even have a lot to do with my own common pension process because I was not in my mind very well. When I got home, my biggest issue with all of these programs that you're talking about is their eagerness to help. I didn't want anybody's help. And I still have that problem now, and a lot of other veterans do too. A lot of the guys that I know, they don't want people to be on top of them. Oh, you've got an issue. We understand that we have that issue, and we're trying to figure it out. But when everybody's so eager to help you fix your issue, in my mind, I was like, well, you're just pointing a finger at where I'm messing up. You're not actually trying to fix an issue. You're just pointing out everything I'm doing wrong and what I'm not doing that's within the status quo of normal. You know, and that's what drove me to just run the opposite direction. They were too eager to try to help me, and that pushed me out. But then you have the opposite end where they're not eager at all to touch anybody, and it's kind of a catch-22. You have some vets that want that help and can't get it, and then the ones that are trying to help just don't want it.
That's the tension of this conversation, is that your experience is a little bit different from Joel's.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, once I got my PTSD recognized and I got in the system and beat down the door and climbed the wall and, you know, took a few grenades in the process, sure, I was able to get the help with the PTSD that I needed. And I mean, I could make phone calls and get me in there to get the treatments and stuff. It's great. But
that battle wasn't worth it.
yeah, it was.
Sometimes.
I was crossing the no man's land to get there, and it was absolutely ridiculous. And it's still, like I said, I'm still fighting to get that final recognition to where I need to be. I mean, they didn't give me when they upped my rating. They tried to say that when I claimed my PTSD was bad, which was at the time, I was literally not willing to leave the house for a year. I didn't leave the house for a year. I mean, short of like absolutely must use. But during that time, they saying that, you know, oh, you were only going to give you recognition that your issue went back a year. What about the time when I claimed I was having the issue all the way back there, and that's what I was seeking treatment for, and I was in my deepest part of my treatment, and I was having the most issues? Is that just wiped off the board? It's frustrating because I'm constantly battling that area, and it just seems like it's an uphill fight the whole way. And if they would just, you know, take a minute to step out of their own shoes and step into the shoes of the veterans who are already sacrificed so much, and to say for 5 seconds, you would see that they're doing more harm than good, And I'm not saying that the individuals that work at the VA,
It's the system as a whole.
it's a system as a whole, and like they've made strides to try to fix it, but it's still very broken.
Mm.
And I get what they're trying to do is they don't want to. There are a group of people out there that are just trying to get whatever they can get out of the system.
Absolutely.
And they're trying to to ward off those people.
Yes.
But there's got to be a better way. They need to figure out a better way, where it's not,
Yeah.
warding off people and stuff. So
Absolutely.
we're figuring out where to put our mics, guys. So it's
Yeah.
the sound's kind of low. We know that, and I have a feeling.
A little bit.
Yeah. So the sound's kind of low. It's just because we're working on it. So
Yeah.
please bear with us. Live is always fun.
Yes.
Like a camera going off angle.
Well, the interesting part is this is our first show, so you know what? It's going to get
Join-
better from here.
join with
right?
us on it, yep.
So if you stay with us the course, then you have a shared story with us as well. So you were talking about this. It was interesting, Joel, that you were talking about how veterans should be treated better here on their homeland, and you should not have to essentially fight for what is or should be yours.
It is yours according to the contract you signed when you joined the military.
Mhm.
It is, you do this for us, we will do this for you. And that's the way it should be, and the way it should be taken on. But it's, you do this for us, and when you get back, you better fight tooth and nail to get your other end of it.
Well,
For
how
a
about-
lot of them.
How about this one? This is the one that's pissed me off to no end multiple times. You knew what you were getting into when you joined the service, and you volunteered for it. So, what are you whining about?
Yeah. They don't understand what they're saying when they say that, that's for sure. You don't know what you're getting into when you join the military.
Well, how about this one? When you get a driver's license, you understand the risk that you might get in a car accident and either be killed, lose a limb, things like that.
Yeah.
So when you get in that car accident and maybe the other driver doesn't have insurance or something else like that, and you're fighting like heck to get your settlement or get your car fixed, or you're frustrated and mad, well, you knew what you're getting into. I mean, it's someone who just fought to defend the freedom, to keep the enemy at bay, and I know people have different opinions on this, that's fine, I get that. But for someone who did go over and physically served with her, met the calling of their country, whether they agreed with it or not, they were called to serve, they served, they did it. And then to have someone say to them, well, that's what you signed up for. Yeah, I signed up to serve. I signed up to be that shield. But the country we made promises to the country to do that, but the country made promises to us too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Why is it that the country we're expected to stand up to fulfill those promises to our country, but the country isn't required to fulfill their promises to us?
Well, because I feel like you have born and bred in you as soldiers a sense of honor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think along the way, it doesn't travel back to your homeland where you've been called to defend and serve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge proponent of honor. That's a big deal for me, to honor. So not only am I willing to put my money where my mouth is when I say thank you for your service, I mean thank you for your service. We're going to take care of you and do what we have to do to rehabilitate you, if
Exactly.
that's for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and there's a sense in me too that, and I'm sure you have it too, where, yes, we served, we sacrificed, we did it because it was a calling and it's who we are.
Yeah.
And it's not like we want to be out there asking and fighting, hey, please give me some service or whatever else. We don't want, it's not going to crying for recognition. I'd say at least that falls for most of us out there. There's a few, but we won't get into that part of it. But
They're more few than
yeah, the core group I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Of course, the majority. That's even like, hey, when there's a veterans benefit or like a discount offered at somewhere like Home Depot or Lowe's or something.
Mm-hmm.
Home Depot and Lowe's. I hope you're listening. No, so
what's that?
a wonderful place to get stuff for your home and
Matter
all
of
your
fact,
projects.
If I can say this right here, that's his favorite store is Home Depot. We spent what 3 hours at Home Depot.
Home Depot is a grown feller's Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes, yes.
I've
And
grown
so you
colors
can
back.
send a check to, no, I'm kidding. So anyways,
I tip a hat at you, or dread, either way.
but when they do have a military discount there, but even to, I still, even a decade later, still feel weird, like, hey, can I get a better discount or something like that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I get those looks sometimes, and people going, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a hard time
That's
with that
interesting.
myself. I don't seem to think that I need any recognition for it. I don't like to tell people I'm a veteran. Matter of fact, that my friend Tony here, you tell people more about me being a veteran than I ever did.
I have to admit, you guys, I do brag on veterans. I brag on these two already because, again, I think I've had a longing to join the military, and so I'm living vicariously through you guys. So there you go.
Gotcha.
Just saying. So yeah, but it's last segment you were talking about how difficult it is to even for a veteran to go in and get services for counseling because of that warrior mentality. So it has to be challenging. You're good. It has to be challenging to go in and ask for that military discount because of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, anything. Like asking for help in general. I don't know if it's just a man thing or if it's a soldier thing added on top of it, but
It's both.
I mean, it
It takes
a real strong person to be able to actually ask for help. And I
struggle with that
myself more than I'd like to admit.
Do you think that the VA, and I'm not saying not all, but are you saying, do you think the VA kind of makes it a little bit difficult because of that tension of asking for help? So we're going to weed out the ones who are the men from the boys?
Yes, I
Sure.
honestly think that they did, and then there is something that the VA
did that
like really blew my
mind when it comes
comes to the mental
health portion.
They have now created something called the Vet Center.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's
heard about this.
completely separate from the VA. The counselors that work at the Vet Center have to be combat veterans,
Mhm.
and it is for only
Combat veterans.
Yeah, like if, say, a normal person went in the military, served 4 or 5 years, was never deployed, never saw active combat at all, they could not even step foot into those doors. It's set aside specifically for combat MOS and people who are in combat. And they are combat veterans. That's where when I was saying I don't want to discredit people for their book smarts and their degrees that they went through, but even they have finally decided that maybe these people aren't qualified to talk to this group of people. So now they have found a group of people like us that have figured out how to get that help, and now they're trying to help us. But they are active combat veterans themselves who are the counselors now.
And
Wow.
those are the people that, when you describe, the smell or the sound or the lack of sound sometimes.
Yes.
They understand the difference between a hiss and a ting.
Yes, and
You know.
you have a lot more range of things you can say at the vet center versus the VA. Because you go into a VA, they look at it, you can be just like, man, I just want to kill this person, this, that, and the other. With the VA, they have to write that down and say something. Well, these are combat veterans. They understand that, well, right now in this second, that's what you think. That's what you're feeling right now.
Doesn't mean
Not
you're
in a
gonna get
whole-
machete and start.
Yeah,
knocking
so
down
they
people.
don't, that doesn't leave that office. Whereas if you did it at the VA, you might be leaving that office in a straitjacket. You know what I mean? It's a totally different environment. If that wasn't there, I would have never been able to step into any type of help.
In my profession, if someone comes to me and says, today I just want to die, it's different from, today I just want to die and this is how I'm going to do it, X, Y, and
Absolutely.
Z.
Absolutely.
I respond differently to that. So kind of what you're saying was talking to a combat veteran, they kind of can see
Yes, they
that this
understand.
is a short-term
Yes.
thing, not
And the thing is, they might be going through the same thing too themselves.
And they have. That's the point that I liked about that vet center so much, is that they have gone through everything that I have been through. They have been through the steps from where I was to get to where they are, to turn around and help the rest of us back at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
And it took a lot for me to be able to talk to anybody, period, But then when I found that vet center, I ended up finding a guy that I was stationed with in my first deployment to Iraq, who was a medic, became a counselor, and worked at the vet center. And so talking to him made it easy.
So the vet center was good for you.
It is. It
and
was great for me.
The vet center, that's one of those things I said they made changes in like the last 5 years.
I think it's been around 3.5 that I know of.
Yeah, that was one of the changes that actually made. I remember when the paperwork came to me about it, I was like, there's another thing. But I've heard the same stories. I myself haven't gone there because I've set a rapport with who I speak with. But I mean, it's for those who have gone there, they said such good things because the conversation, even between you and I,
It's real.
it's different than like if I talk to Tony about something, because when you and I, we can take ourselves back to that place, and we can have that.
Shared experience.
And when I say, do you know what I mean? You actually know what I mean.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
you actually have that understanding. And like, for example, when I tell my wife, I miss being there. I wanted, like I told her first time I told her like, I wanted to go back. She looked like me like I was nuts. She looked at me like I was nuts. And I was gonna end up in a straitjacket somewhere. But there's a sense there that unless you've been there, unless you've been in that environment and you understand what's been there, it's just there's no words that I've been able to find in a decade so far to describe that.
I called it, I didn't belong here. I did no longer, when I came home from Iraq, I no longer belonged in the United States. I did not belong in society because I had spent so long, in the way I would say it, is judge, jury, executioner status. You know, this is your job. I was okay with that. I was good with knowing this is what I do, this is how this is done. And then when I come back, there's so much freedom in being who you are, you know, and I didn't understand that. It took me over 10 years just to know that, hey, I'm not a soldier anymore. I'm not over there. I don't have to think this way. I don't have to act this way. And it's different.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. In our last about a minute or so, if you could change one thing about your journey in trying to get the benefits that you so very much deserve, what would you change?
I think it would be probably the education piece, and that is before I even started the process. Understanding what I need to do before I give them that paperwork, because once you get that process started, it's hard to get like updates. So understanding that I need to call anyone I've seen since I've been out there. I need to find a way to get my medical records, my witness statements, LOD paperwork, to get in treatment and start getting that going, so I can get a outside opinion, get those extra medical records, lay out a map of from beginning to end, and connect those pieces of evidence in a map that you submit, so that when the person's looking at it, and they're not looking at a pile of something they have to put together themselves, they can see what the story you're trying to tell, and how you got from point A to point B. Because, I mean, if I don't know your story and you hand me all these medical records, I'm gonna try to figure out what you're talking about. And so I know that that's a struggle for them. And to have a well laid out, clear picture. And remember, don't oversubmit. If you put too much information in there,
Take even longer.
and it's because that can confuse the issue.
Yes.
But at the same time, always be honest and don't lie about something, because it is a legal document.
Absolutely.
And so be clear, put your information in there, and don't put stuff in there that doesn't pertain to what you're trying to talk about.
Absolutely.
Send it in, and then be ready to work the process, because they're going to send you to appointments. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to put you through the process, and sometimes that process takes a while. Yes, it does, but they're going to put you through, and be ready for it. Pay attention and keep track on it. Be following up on it. All of those steps, everything I just mentioned, including so much more, are in the article we have on backwoodsbrothers.com.
Awesome.
And just go in there, and it's literally it's kind of interactive. You can kind of click through there, and it'll really give you a good flow on how to go through the process.
Sounds like an emotional process, but a lengthy one, but stay the course, and hopefully you get what should be coming to you. Joel, real fast, can we just keep Clint on for a little bit during the Q&A section? Because I feel like maybe he can answer some questions.
By all means, by all means.
I just put him on the spot here, so.
Well, yeah, the original plan was to have Clint go off for the Q&A, but I think that'd be great for him to be there, and we'll go ahead and see how they go. So join us back. We'll be right back with after this video. Go ahead and watch it, and then we'll see you back for the Q&A.
3 teens were arrested today for defacing the Kensington Park War Memorial overnight. The destruction includes painted messages against the military and the war in the Middle East. The 3 teens were picked up in the early morning hours after evidence was left at the scene.
Grandpa, something wrong?
Some people sure have short memories, and those who are too young to know need to be taught. Come on, I want to show you guys something.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
At dawn on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944, 225 Rangers jumped off the British landing craft and ran to the bottom of these cliffs. 225 came here. After 2 days of fighting, only 90 could still bear arms. These are the boys of Puente Viejo. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. These are the heroes who helped end a war. You are men who in your, quote, lives fought for life and left the vivid air signed with your honor.
In the name of God and country, I learned to defy gravity.
To honor my family,
I lived in the belly of a beast.
I fixed the hearts of iron monsters.
I became a worm in the mud for dignity,
for honor, for righteousness' sake,
for God and country.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
For you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
For you.
For you.
For you.
For you. I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you, and I do it again.
And thank you for staying with us. Again, this is our first show, and we're really excited about it. And we had Clint stay over. Normally, we would have our Q&A session with just the Backwoods brothers, but we have an honorary Backwoods brother right now. So there you go. So we have some questions that came in, and we encourage them to keep coming in. Like I said, ask those questions. If you don't ask, you won't know. So we're glad that you're back, and we're going to take our questions right now. Joel, are you ready for that?
I'm definitely ready for it. Hopefully our producer's ready to give us the first question here.
But no, wait, one more question. Joel, are you ready for that?
I'm ready for it. I'm ready to answer these questions and get us going. And, yes, and so as far as someone's mic, we need you to push your mic towards your mouth.
Awesome.
Oh.
The way that you're speaking, push it on that side that you're speaking on.
So if you're facing us, you put, yeah. Hey guys, technical issues, yay!
It's always good to have a mic next to you guys.
Yeah.
There.
Awesome.
Is that better?
Is that better?
Okay.
All right, so we gave you a couple more minutes to get your questions in, and we're going to also one more time.
You can ask us as we're going, so we'll answer the questions. If another question pops up, there's no limit on the questions. Just keep popping them in through the chats. That's on Facebook, that's on YouTube, that's on Twitch. And through our website as well. There's actually
Ninja.
No, we don't have anything live on Soapbox Ninja. But we do have Soapbox Ninja is a site that we are on. We'll talk about that later though. But we do have the ability on our website. If you actually go to the website backwoodsbrothers.com, there's a little link that says live show. You click that, and there's actually you can watch it live through our website and ask us questions.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
Why don't we have our producer John here give us the first question?
Sir Joel, so the first question is, as a family member of an amazing man who is a vet, what can family do to help vets also?
So, let me rephrase the question because he doesn't have a mic, which I realized.
That's okay.
Something to fix. So the question is, as a family member of an amazing vet, what can families do to help the vets along in this type of through like PTSD and stuff like that? There's a struggle. Would that summarize it up, John?
Yes, that's
okay.
The first half.
Okay, so that's the first half of the question. Bear with us. So why don't you start with this one here? I want to see what your outside opinion is first.
She's going to ask for the outside counselor opinion. One of the things I know about veterans and the wives or the husbands that are left on homeland, they continue with their routines. I'm talking about the family system. So a lot of times if you're a wife or a husband who you're watching kids without your spouse, they're deployed, you are in a routine. And when your loved one returns, there is a reintegration back into the family that has to take place. And sometimes where I see families struggle the most is inviting their loved one back in to that family structure and now figuring out what roles are going to be played in that space. So I think that it's an ongoing process to reintegrate your families back in, but be intentional about that. And actually there are a lot of support groups for families with veterans who have been deployed and who have PTSD that I would encourage, even while your loved one is deployed, expect that, as Joel said, they're not going to come back the same. So one of the things that spouses can do too while they're being deployed is to get yourself ready to maybe introduce a stranger back into your house. But he looks or she looks the same, but inside they've had experiences that maybe they can't talk about right away. And so that is definitely something to navigate and to get some outside support. Remember, families, you're being deployed too as well. There's an interruption in your home. So maybe while you're keeping your home going, be ready for that person who is going to be returning back home and needs your support.
And I have to agree with that heavily. As far as expect that the person that comes back, yes, isn't the same. It's not that they're all different. All things are different. There's just a portion of them that's different. So it's like a skewed version of the original person, but it may not be. It's not always a bad skewed too.
No.
Keep that in mind. It's not always a bad thing too. That some of the issues that they're having, but you expect it to be there. And the big thing I think is to have love and patience for them. And the biggest thing is patience there. And patience will come from love.
And
understanding, yes.
Try to be as understanding as possible.
Exactly.
Patience comes from work.
Personally, I know that I don't try to cause issues and things, but I know that my trauma has come out and caused issues. And knowing that, with my own children, they're patient and they're unwavering in that love to be there, and they're very understanding of the fact that there is something going on at that point in time. And it may not be all the time, but during those times, just be understanding of what may be going on.
I think a big thing might be too is try to focus on the pieces of them that are still there.
Yes.
And,
don't mourn the ones that are lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Or try not
Reinforce the good things that are there, and expect that you're going to have hard conversations, or things are going to be hard to deal with, and be ready for it. But at the same time, when it comes out and there's things that are happening that don't make sense to you, just because they don't make sense to you doesn't mean that there's not a good reason behind them. So it's the same thing as if you had gotten in a car accident and suddenly you're afraid to drive again, or whatever might come out of that. Trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter where it's coming from, and the same thing needs to be there. Just be supportive, and don't have expectations of what you're going to run into. Just be ready for the change.
Joel, real fast, and I know we have another question, but real fast, how do you work with a loved one who's been deployed that says they want to go back? They don't really want to be here.
I think that's understand that it's not about you. It's not about not wanting to be with you. It's about, when everything that soldier just went through, there's a sense of comfort that they're looking for, and a sense of familiarity. Thank you.
Yeah.
That word.
Yeah.
that they have, and there's a sense of structure that they're missing, and they're just trying to figure out how to fill that in their head, and that the best way for them to know, and like I said, even a decade later, the same for me, is to be back in that place where you had all that, and that may never change. So, and that's the biggest thing. And when all else fails, and you're having a really hard time, just eat a banana.
Just eat a banana. Potassium.
Yeah.
Works for everything.
John, what's the next question?
So the next half of that first question is, what can family do to notice the signs our pets need?
Why don't you start with this one?
All I can say is it's going to be pretty evident. Those signs, you're going to see them pretty much instantly, especially if you knew that person before they left. The only thing that I caution on is pointing out those things, because I know I have also TBI, traumatic brain injuries, along with my PTSD. So with the traumatic brain injuries, it's not that you're actually attacking that person, it's just that's what it is perceived coming towards that person. And so it's, well, why can't you just do this, or why can't you be normal, but do it in more of like a more tact and more loving type of a manner, not, well, we used to be like this, what happened?
Wow.
And those were the questions that were asked to me all the time. You're not the same, why are you like this? Well, the thing is, we don't know why we're like that. We don't understand what's going on. And you will see it long before the soldier or the vet ever will.
Wow.
Because to them, they're just doing life the way that they know how to do. And you guys have been here away from that, and yeah, it's something you will definitely be able to see, I think, a lot faster than anybody else, especially being right there with them.
And keep in mind, as a soldier, we're also we are trying to come to terms with it ourselves, and we're mourning the loss of that piece of ourselves.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely.
So we're dealing with it as well in a different internally, and recognizing that it's us. And so, I mean, and sometimes we also may not realize the fact is true that you're dealing with it as well. And so that's as far as recognizing the signs, it would be a different change in behavior. But I mean, as I mentioned earlier, anybody who goes and is in an area where they could expect to be dead every day, where it's, a morgue could come in and hit you.
Absolutely.
Where you're on missions and you're in firefights, or you have to shoot somebody, you get to see your buddies blowing up, you maybe gone through something. Even if you're the guy that's sitting in a barracks on a barrack site, like an office somewhere on a big area and doing paperwork, you still have risks that you deal with. You're carrying a gun every day, a weapon. You're dealing with the fact is that you're a lot of paperwork. You have a mission every day. You're out of your element. Mortars can still come in. People can get on bases. Things can happen still, and so that's still something that has affected them. So every veteran has come back is going to have a little bit of something. Now, is it going to be as drastic as when, someone drops a plate in the kitchen and they dive under the couch, and or when, they're going to drive in the middle of the lane, or they're going to, be zoning out into non-lane, or whatever might happen? No, it's not always going to be like that, but there's going to be a little bit. And so I think every veteran at some point should talk to somebody, even if it's another veteran. So recognize that first of all, that there's going to be something different if everybody comes back. And I think the biggest thing, if you start seeing things more like the biggest concern would be like if they start really, really distancing themselves from somebody and started getting in a depressive state. If they are constantly being outgoing, aggressive with everybody, violent. If it's something where they're drinking, if they're doing into drugs and kind of it's self-destruction is basically, I would say. Those areas, if it's definitely, especially if it's out of character for them, to really try to identify that as being, okay, that's probably from trauma that they've dealt with, and then start seeing about ways you can try to help them get into that. Sometimes it's, it's just being there enough for them. They might recognize it off the bounce back. So
I'm a person that likes to know why, likes to know the why behind it. So is it always helpful, or is it somewhat helpful to ask questions? If I can just, maybe we're on live TV, but forgive me, you can beat me up afterwards, but I know the face is really a sensitive space for you. And so, yeah, right? When something is close to your face, you tend to jerk back. And the part of me as your bestie wants to know, what is that about? How can I help? Is that appropriate to ask?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, it depends. That's going to judge based upon every veteran's going to be different. I think the more counseling they've been through, they're better at handling those type of questions because they get them. Versus someone who hasn't really gone through a lot of counseling, asking the wrong questions, seeing the wrong video, something like that can really push them in the wrong space. And so you got to be sensitive to that. And I think the biggest thing is when you see them go into the spaces, just give them time and just be there for what they need.
Give them space and time?
Yeah, give them space, give them time, and if they need something, if they ask, they'll let you know, or just kind of be there in a supportive manner. Give them that. But yeah, as far as and I may not even fully understand why. I mean, I didn't get punched in the face a whole bunch of times, or I wasn't ever blast off my face. I mean, I don't fully understand exactly why when I was in Afghanistan we wore a lot of helmets, we had different gear we put on our face and stuff. But there wasn't like some big trauma that happened over there. It's just something about, I think it's more of a sense of control what's on my face. Because if I'm holding something like this, I do much better with it being in my face than if I just have it attached to me. Hence is why like the mask issue comes up. When it's on me or a shield on me, I can't control it, and so all those sensors are going off. Is something in my face, on my peripherals, is in my, what's going on? Is it choking me? All these different things, alarm bells are going off in my head constantly. I'm starting a panic attack.
Yes.
If I have control over it, I can take it away if I need to.
Makes sense.
I can control where it's at. I can distance it out, and even then, sometimes it starts to get a little much having it in my face. But I can control it, take that away. It's a sense of control there. And not a control in a bad way. It's a control of our environment, because we need to make sure that when we start getting in that zone where our it's like an open nerve. When we got too much stimulation, we have to, we want to draw back.
Good imagery.
And that's what we want to be able to control, that drawback. So,
absolutely.
You guys have anything else before we want to go to the next question? Next question.
Good. Next question.
Next question.
All right. Next question is, so how can we support our wives or husbands or our immediate family in helping our vets? Their families are sideline warriors to our vets also. They need recognition and support also.
That's true.
Very much.
That's true.
They're going through it as much as we are.
Yes.
I mean, granted, they're not the ones getting shot at every day, but...
Did they hear the question?
Oh, you got a good point.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're going to get your question.
How can we help support our wives?
So the question was, how can we help support our wives, husbands, family members who are sideline warriors?
That's a good question.
This is just as much to be help with our vets.
Yeah.
So going back into the statement then to answer that question.
Yeah, more context. Always good.
So they are going through it too. While we're the vets over there getting shot at and blown up and things, they're the ones over there going, hey, I don't have control of the fact that my husband, my wife, my son, my daughter, whatever, is going to be shot at, blown up. I don't know what's going on. There's no information. Sometimes they can't call for weeks. Sometimes you get a call every night. It changes.
Or Joel, real fast, just the opposite. Sometimes they don't want to watch the news.
Yeah.
Or sometimes families don't want, and as a matter of fact, in some places they encourage families not to because of the stress
Exactly.
and anxiety.
And like Randy described to me, every knock on the door, phone call you get, you go, you worry about it. And then, based on my position, I had a chance to be more in contact with Brandy than some other people did, so I thank God for that. But even then, if she missed a phone call from me because she was in the middle of something or whatever was going on, I know it really upset her a lot. And so, especially when she was used to hearing from me a little more often, and then she couldn't because I was on mission or something, she would, she'd be really upset, even more so if I couldn't tell her ahead of time about, hey, I'm going to be on a mission, so we won't hear from me for a week or whatever. I know that was really hard on her. So all that is still trauma. It's still trauma coming in.
Yes, it is.
And honestly, I think that when we get home, that's when more of that trauma that the family gets involved in happens. Yes, I understand it's tough when we're over there, but I think that real battle happens when we get home, and they're trying to go through all of that with us.
Yep.
They need just as much support, if, in my opinion, more support dealing with us. So like the one thing that I think that I wish I would have looked into more was the things that is provided for my family. Because I can't stress enough how much my family had to go through and how much they were there through all of the worst of it, and being over there, it had to have been hard on my family, but being home, I guarantee it's been more of a battle for them since I've been back than it was when I was ever over there.
True.
And I think as it is with any trauma, I think the best thing is just having a support person you can talk to.
Yes.
As you're going through it, like when they're gone,
System.
FRGs is a common, it's a family readiness group.
Family readiness group?
Yeah. So for Brandy, it was hard because she was detached almost instantly from the FRG because the day I left, she left out of the area and actually went to go stay with my mom up in Washington and then back down to Oregon. So that FRG that was in place for our unit down in Las Vegas wasn't there anymore. It wasn't there. I mean, she might have a Facebook contact or a phone call, but those connections were not there. So that's extremely hard for them to. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Too hard for them to.
It's really hard for them to not have those connections and the support, and then try, because the FRGs have those resources.
Yes.
You guys have to excuse the noise in the background, guys. But to not have those resources, and then to try to find someone to fill that gap to talk to, they're not going to understand. Those FRG knows, kind of goes what they're going through, especially if they've been experienced with previous deployments. And then you go to a place where might be a parent or a friend who has no idea because they don't have someone in there, or they've never gone through a deployment. So
the support system, I think, is a huge thing for when you are deployed and also when you get back. And that's got to be having somebody there that they can talk to also, because it's not just us that needs to talk. They need to talk out also, because they get to see the ugly where nobody else sees the outside of us. When we're out in public, you get to act. We're still a soldier. Then when you get home, my problem with it was when I got home, I was lost. I didn't know what being a soldier at home meant. I could be a soldier there, but when I got home, it was just like everything fell apart. So having that support system, not just for yourself, but your family in general needs to have that support system.
It's so critical.
Yeah.
So critical.
I love that question because, I mean, civilian talk right here as a counselor, when you're dealing on another level with an addict, a lot of times, a lot of the services go to the addict and not to their families. I think one of the biggest mistakes I've said to my wife, being visually impaired, is, you have no idea what I'm going through. And she corrected me and said, yes, I do, because I go through it with you. Guess who gets it? I do. So I think on a military scale or a family scale, your whole family's affected by this.
Exactly. It's definitely it's a grenade effect, whereas an air blast. So
wow.
While the closer you are to it, the more damage you can do.
Yeah.
But it still gets the people on the other ends. So
wow.
So
Very nice.
yeah. Do you guys have anything else? You want to go to the next question?
Next question.
Next question.
All right.
Next
Next
question.
question, John.
I think that was the last one.
Okay, so the next question would be, so what are some of the resources out there that we can get to help a veteran? You know, like, and I think a lot of them are mentioned on the website, but there's outside resources that you mentioned on the website that, you know, on a personal level we can get to. Like, I think we mentioned like the VFW. We mentioned the you mentioned one earlier.
American Legion.
American Legion, the DAV. The vet center, but let's also mention there's other vets out there too that have been through it. That sometimes you can sit down and have a conversation with. You know, there's places where there's groups just in like community centers that try to just have a veterans groups and things you can go talk to. There's veterans groups online if you just want to chat with them. There's a lot of different spaces for veterans to go and talk to.
Yeah.
So.
And they're starting to open those up to the families also.
Oh, definitely.
More opening up for family members, wives, children, and it's not. There's a couple of them that they have at the VA. I know it's an inpatient style PTSD group for the veteran, but they integrate the families into that. So you're like the veteran will be doing hardcore PTSD trauma stuff, but then they bring the family along with you once a week, and you sit down. The kids get to interact with other kids that their parents are veterans. Also, the wives get to speak to the wives, the spouses, I should say, because not everyone is the same.
Yeah. A question just came in. What is, as a veteran, your favorite holidays?
Oh, as a veteran, as my favorite holidays, definitely not 4th of July.
Really?
I don't like 4th of July. I don't want to. The booms and things like that you can expect them. They come before and they go on after. New Year's Day the same way. It sucks. I mean, 10 years later, I'm way better than I used to be. I remember the first one I got back. I was down at Seaside. My whole family, we were out there. The fireworks are going up. My whole family's excited about it and going on. I'm hiding in the back room trying to fix a blind because I didn't want, just trying to do anything else but deal with that.
Yeah. I left my wife and kids at the show in Astoria and went home.
Yeah.
I just left them there, took the car, and did.
You know, that's interesting because you would think that the 4th of July would be the most celebratory.
Well, yeah, and I get the whole purpose of it, but for a veteran is different than someone who's celebrating veterans.
Learn something new.
And my favorite holiday would be any one that I don't have to be involved with anybody else.
Exactly. Veterans Day is great because guess what?
They don't expect you to do anything but sit around and do nothing.
Yeah, I usually get to work, but
get to work.
Yeah,
I
and,
sit
you know,
alone.
it's always nice to get a free meal if you actually want to go through the crowds.
Yeah, and
but
if you want to mention that you're a veteran.
Yeah, if you want to go through that too. But the fact is that we have a chance for a day off there.
Yeah. Have you guys thought about, and here's my counseling coming out in me, have you ever thought about noise canceling headphones to wear during that time?
Do you want to wear them for 2 weeks?
I wouldn't want to wear them anyways because I have to be in control and be able to hear and know everything that's going on.
Definitely, exactly.
Cancel out anything from me being able to know. You take away my sensory. I'll have a whole lot more problems than you did if a big thing happened.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I mean, even when you expect it, you start getting lots and more over. And I really push myself to get through them, and I try to get excited because I'm more expecting them this time, so I'm better about it. Well, like even like months after and stuff, and it's a common thing I hear in Estacada. M80s going off randomly around here.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Especially weeks before and weeks after these fireworks holidays, people are constantly setting them off. And
Watch out
I mean,
now.
it's good. I mean, it's there's no law against it, and they enjoy it. And I get that, and they shouldn't have to go through and put themselves out just because as a veteran I have an issue. I mean, they have a life to live too, and I'm fully for that. But I mean, at the same time, there's a sense of consideration too that they should definitely play. When we're more awake and astute, like in the middle of the day, less damaging than when we're about to go to sleep, where it's 3 a.m. in the morning and a big old M80 goes off, and next thing you know, we're boom popped awake on our feet and wanting to know what's going on, and then we don't sleep the rest of the night.
Absolutely.
That's a big difference. And that's something that I would advise anyone who does the fireworks and stuff. Have a blast with them, do them all. Just consider some of the people around you who
Did you
have
just say have a blast with them?
have a blast with them. Yes, don't blow yourself up, but have fun with it.
After he's have a blast. That's great, Backwoods brother.
Yeah, have fun with it. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, so have a good time. At the same time, try to be considerate of those around you who may have fought for you to have the right to put those to set those off as well, and maybe try to keep it during hours that they might not be as affecting. But at the end, it's a free country. We fought for those rights for them to do it, and I'm never in the end going to tell them you don't have the right to do something that they legally have the right to do.
But it goes back to honor.
It goes back to honor.
And it goes back to love and patience, as you were saying.
Exactly.
So love and patience might mean that I don't get to have that right sometimes.
Exactly.
Or I forfeit that right.
Exactly. It sounds like we got a couple more questions, and we're running short on time. So I'm going to go ahead and go to John to the next question.
Is there a crisis number?
Yes, there is an actual crisis number for vets, and as you see them reaching frantically because we did not have that prepared. What we'll do is we are going to take that number.
Yes.
We will go ahead and post it on our Facebook page.
Absolutely.
And we will put it out on our Twitter.
Yes.
And we will put it on our front of our Backwoods Brothers page and in the article. We'll basically post it everywhere. But there's numbers for crisis centers for veterans.
Absolutely.
They aren't just run by the VA. The Vet Center has one that you mentioned earlier.
Yes, they do.
They have a really good one, and that's the one I found to be the most beneficial.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but
Great
yes,
question.
we will definitely get that out to you guys.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
What's the next question we got?
The next one is it's more a fun one. Who is Joel's favorite sister?
Who is Joel's favorite
Wow.
sister? I'm a man. I'm a man built on love and respect. So that's why that's where I come from. And so when you love your family and you respect them, do your best on them.
Okay. You can tell he's in public office.
I've ever heard.
You can tell he's in public office, guys.
Is that
an answer?
That is the best non-answer you're going to get from me.
I think I know who
honestly,
it is.
I love you, Sarah. I love you, Talitha. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for watching and putting up with myself here on the show and my friends here that are sharing and being supportive in that way. But we love you all. And
That's really funny you said putting up with us. You know what? We're going to invade your homes every second and fourth week.
Which is 2 weeks from today. And
2 weeks.
Yes. But you definitely keep checking back because we will do little things between shows. We're going to try to pop on live here and there, and
yes,
we might do some street beats or maybe go on a road rage, as we call it. Yes. Which that's not really we're going to beat someone up on the road. It's just we find something that gets us going as far as like a conversation. We'll throw up and we'll just start ranting and having a conversation about whatever's got us heated up about a subject or something.
Here's a question as we are winding to the end of our show here, but here's a quick question. How can we keep you guys engaged? I would love for you to give us feedback on our platforms.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe some show ideas. We have like 30 of them, but we can always use 30 more. So that's a really good thing.
I think the biggest thing is we want to have the show be interactive. We want to have you guys sending us questions. Even if you send us questions throughout the week, we're willing to get back to you on some of those. We might answer those on, like I said, a Road Rage or whatever, one of the midweek type of live streams. We might pull up some of those questions. So you can, like, if you're watching this as a.
But you're not watching the phone. I'm watching the phone.
Well,
you have to drive.
Well, I'll put 2 phones up and we'll split them. There's
Is
22
that legal?
things. I don't know.
Okay.
So if not, we'll figure it out. We'll switch seats if they pull us over. We'll switch seats and you'll be the driver.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have that show like segments later, way down the road.
Anyways,
so it's later.
so what we'll
Blind
do,
driver. Interesting. Oh, another question.
It looks like we just got another question that came in, so I'm not going to keep rambling about dumb stuff here. You go ahead and give me the question.
So what was the interaction, what was the, how did I say it? Was the interaction with your kids, what was the interaction with your kids like after you got back? And does how you interact with them and how you see them now, has that changed?
What was the interaction with your kids when you got back, and does that how do you see that interaction changing?
Has that changed? Or
Has that
How do you
changed?
see them?
Well,
how does
from my end, we didn't have kids for like years, a couple years after I got back, so this has nothing to do with me. This is all about you, buddy.
Well, I didn't have kids until I got home either, but during raising them, I saw the difference between my 2 oldest kids and my 2 younger kids. My 2 older kids were being raised as privates because I was a staff sergeant in the Army. You're going to do as I say. You don't have any options. That was not the correct way to be a parent, and I figured that out. There was a lot of things that went into me figuring that out, but then I went to figure out how to be a good parent, I guess. I took early childhood education courses in college to understand the development of the child's brain. And so the difference between the way I raised my older 2 and my younger 2 was way different. And it took me a few years with my older 2 kids to be able to have any type of a real relationship. But now that I have been able to address those issues, I can look at my children with more love and more understanding and more patience than I did when I first got home. When I first got home, it was, you're going to do this right now, and if you don't, I'm going to snatch you up. There is no talking back. There is no hesitation. You do as I say right now. But now, as a dad, I get to take time to look at every situation, but take a step back from it before I engage.
I get to see the privilege of you interacting with your kids, and I tell you what, you have 4 boys.
No, 4 boys.
4 boys, guys. Figure this one out, and they would rather spend their time walking on their hands than their feet. It's pretty awesome to see you guys interact together and how you love your boys.
So and I bet you when you said how you raised them like privates the first time, and then when you realized that was the right way, my wife probably went, "Ha!"
Pretty much.
That was my first take on things, and I expect my daughter to have a certain sense of discipline and listen to what she's told, and when I expect and command that respect to her mom and I, it's yes sir, yes ma'am, and do those type of things, and that's the sense of respect that I did get from the military. But at the same time, I'm also learning in the process that you got to have some grace in there, and I think that grace comes more from my love and respect I have, and it's definitely been hard. I have a daughter who like this the other day. I heard that she's pretty rough and she plays with a lot of boys. So she got in a little bit of a fist fight with a boy.
Did you take him out?
I don't know. I guess he hit her and then she came back and hit him, and I don't know. In the end, but there's a piece of me that welled up real. You don't hit my daughter,
Well, that's not a military thing. That's a dad thing.
Yeah, but
I'm just going to let you know that's real talk here.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, it's.
But you're even more.
Here's the grace part came in for the kids is because, one is my daughter is pretty tough. At the same time, I let their parent take care of it, and I really wanted to go talk to him and put the fear of God, more likely the fear of dad in there.
Yeah.
Put the fear of God through dad on there, but but at the same time, I decided to have love and grace on that, and hopefully the parents were able to have a conversation and put that understanding into the young man. But what's the young man? I mean child.
Young man. So can I just say, when someone hits our daughters, we don't see them as kids. We see them as young men.
Yeah. You feel better when when you hang them from a fence post.
I don't have that problem. I've got all boys. I'm sorry.
Hey guys, we're going to
I do have a daughter, but
this conversation, especially in an authentic conversation with Hearty Dialogue.
With Hearty Dialogue, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm still in the previous conversation.
Right. So we're going to continue this next, in 2 weeks, I should say, with a different topic. And Joel, can you say the last words, Backwoods brother?
So we'll be focusing on our topic next week. Will be about disability. Week after next. Sorry. Next show. Next show. 2 weeks. We'll have to be focusing on disabilities, and so we're gonna have another guest on then. As much as we've had so much fun with Clint here, and we really appreciate you coming and hanging out with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and so it's been great to have you, and it's been definitely interactive. So on our on the next show, we'll have a new guest here to talk a little bit about the disabilities and the struggle, and learn more about Tony and his story. And yeah, it'll be great. So please join us. In the meantime, any questions you have, even if you're watching like a recorded playback version of this, still submit the questions. We'll keep an eye on that, and we'll try to answer them during the week, and get you prepped. And plus, if you start getting yourself prepped up for any disability questions you might have for the next show, we'd really like to get that interactive piece with you.
Yep. So with that being said, you guys have a great 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us, and remember to hit like, subscribe, and tell your friends about it. We want more people to come right online with us. We're glad you're with us.
Until then, authentic conversation, Hearty Dialogue, and we'll see you then.
Out.
Doggy.